evening. Thank you guys so much for coming tonight to our council meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order. It's 6:30. It will rise to the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if we could remain standing for our firefighters and police officers that have lost their lives in the line of duty. You may be seated. Kristen, has roll call been taken?
Yes.
Chief Sutter, will you do us the honors, please?
Scott Sutter, Chief of Police.
Brian Wall, Fire Chief.
Don Grace, DPW Director. Adam Young, City Planner.
Brooke Card, City Treasurer.
Kristen Kenyak, City Clerk. Alan Glass, City Manager.
Jerry Link, City Council.
Pam Howard, City Council.
Mike Gilmer, City Attorney.
Liz Armstrong, Mayor.
Brad Dick, Mayor Pro Tem.
Denise Miller, City Councilor.
Brenda Simons, City Councilor.
And I would like to excuse Tom Hicks tonight. He won't be able to join us. Do we need a motion for that? Okay, all right, perfect. All right, we're gonna start off with our special presentations. Chief Will, would you like to come do our new firefighter introduction?
Good evening. I'd like to introduce our newest member of our department, Owen Burke. Owen resides near Linden and attends Brighton High School and is in his senior year and currently enrolled in the Fire Academy class in Livingston County. His goal is to become a full-time firefighter once he graduates both from high school and his fire academy. He will train with us and learn the skills of firefighting, attend calls in a limited role when he is available. You can tell when you get a new hire that he will be a good one. His attitude, commitment, and desire to be the best he can be. He always asks questions and dives right into our training sessions. This shows his dedication to learn and ultimately help us in whatever role he is asked to do to serve his community. We welcome Owen to our staff and look forward to seeing him grow in the fire service.
Next up, Chief Sutter, if you would like to introduce the new police officer.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce Brandon Smith. He's our new officer. He started, at the beginning of October, so he's been going through a field training program right now. He's got a wealth of experience. He's been in law enforcement since 2017. He's a 10-year veteran of the Army. So after an exhaustive search, he was by far the best candidate. His superiors and his chiefs from the different places he's been said he's a leader, great for a team, loyal, and just a solid person. We've seen that in the last month. He's been great for us, for our city, and we're very proud to have him. I thank you for joining our force. Thank you.
Next up is Dave Conklin from the Genesee District.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Council. Appreciate the opportunity to be here in front of you tonight and the people from the up there you'll see a brief 7-point slide that I prepared. Chris has been kind enough to cycle through it. So a little bit about Genesee District Library. We're a Class 6 library. That's the largest size library you can have in Michigan. We serve over 340,000 people throughout Genesee County. We're the 3rd largest library system in the state of Michigan. We provide library staff, materials, equipment, all the digital resources and all of that. Our municipal partners, we have 19 different branches. Our municipal partners provide the building and the building maintenance. That keeps the millage cost for the library down because we've got our local municipalities funding that part of it. Our funding, which is about $12.5 million per year now, 90% of that is from the 10-year millage. 6% is from the contributing facilities, that's the municipal partners that I spoke about. 3.5% from penal fines, state aid, and less than 0.5% we've got grants, gifts, and donations, fines, and fees. So our governance, we have an 8-member library board. 4 are appointed from the Genesee County Board of Commissioners, 4 are appointed from Grand Lake Township Board. They serve on alternating 4 years, with 2 from each board being replaced every other 2 years. Our staff, I'm the director, I'm hired by the library board. I then in turn have 62 full-time employee equivalents. We also have, each branch has a master's degree librarian. That means they've gone on to get not just a bachelor's degree, but onto an additional graduate degree in library science. Many of our functions and part of what really makes the district library work really well and efficiently is that we have centralized services. So a lot of our activities take place at the headquarters function, cataloging, ordering of books, things like that. All of the administrative duties are all centralized in one location instead of having all of our 19 branches. If they were individual libraries, you'd have to have a cataloging librarian, you'd have an administrator, you'd have to buy all your books independently, but that's all centralized. So that's part of the efficiency of the district library. We also have 55 different part-time pages. So we're kind of a local employer here. We hire local kids here that work as pages in the library at this particular location and other locations too. And we also have about 24 volunteers. There's also tremendous support from the communities and Friends Group. Every local branch has its own Friends Group where they take some of the things, donations that we get, or if we get books that we read, they take those, they sell those, and those monies are then put back into that local branch. Thanks, Kristen. So last year in 2024, we hosted over 1,240 programs countywide. We circulated almost 1.5 million items, that's both physical and digital. We supplied over 53 hours of computer use for those people who don't have internet or don't have a computer to use, maybe looking for a job, looking for employment, looking to beef up their resume or do a project with school or whatever. We have those resources there. Also, if they have, a lot of people have their own devices, they come into the libraries and they log in and use our Wi-Fi. Our Wi-Fi is up for the public use 24/7. People can come and sit out in the parking lot and use our Wi-Fi if they have a library card, so that's available too for people who can't afford internet services. We have 2 storybook trails, and I'm happy to say one of them is located right here in Linden, so that's something that's fairly new. If you go out to Eaglewood Park, you can see, if you walk along the trail, you see a book, and you stop at the station, you'll be able to read that secession in that book as you walk through the park. And that's changed, I think we change it about every month or every other month, I can't remember exactly, so. Here, and then we have one in Russ Park and Grand Lake. So, like I said, we're the 3rd largest library system in Michigan. However, we rank 40th out of 45 in per capita spending in the state. So what that means is we do more with less. If you look at our peers right there, Kent District Library, that's in the west side of the state, they are the 2nd largest library system. If you look at the numbers there, they almost double the per capita spending. Their budgets are twice as high. And our millage is below 1, which is well below our peers. Capital Area District Library, which is the Lansing area, they are the 4th largest library system in Michigan. And then, of course, there's Glory Coles Flint Public, which is our neighbor right here. They're at 4 mills, which is the max you can be with the district library. But because of the property values, that raises a little bit less money for them. We partner with all kinds of people. We partner with all the folks that you see up there. The library network is our co-op. That means there's about 50 other libraries that we partner with to share resources besides libraries that are in our area. Throughout the state of Michigan, there's something called NELCAT, where you can go online, you you can find a book, let's say in the UP that you want, because of NUTCAT, and our cooperation with all these other public libraries, we can get that book sent here to Linden. You can check it out in Linden without having to go all the way to the UP to get that resource. And then fiscal responsibility is a big deal. When I started here in 2013, we had a reserve balance of 0. That was a big problem for the district library. Had just gone through the 2008 downturn, and we had to lay off employees, we had to drop some services, and it was a hard time. The biggest problem with that is when times are tough, that's when libraries people turn to libraries the most, because they don't have a lot, right? So they really have to lean on libraries. So it's important that the library have a reserve balance to go ahead and, when that downturn comes, because one will come, right? We don't know exactly when, or I'm not a prognosticator, but at some point, an economic downturn will come, and we'll be ready for it because we built up our reserve. In addition, because we built up our reserve, we can make one-time payments toward our long-term liabilities. And you can see here, we do have some employees, all of them hired before 2013, have a pension through Genesee County, and we're obligated to pay those pensions. Our unfunded obligation there is better than anybody else in the county when you look at that, so we're at 97%. That's an obligation we can meet because we have done a good job budgeting, building up our reserve, and paying down our liabilities. Not sure, I think that's my last slide, so I'm open to answer any questions. If you have some questions you want to answer that from the group, I've given you my cards, you have that. I'm happy to come out and meet with anybody. Any members of the public, if you go on the website, you can send me an email or give me a call. I'll be happy to answer the questions you have.
I have the card.
Councilwoman Coleman, do you have any questions?
Actually, you know, I just think the library is like one of the best things we have going for us. The kids love it, I love it. It's just a wealth of knowledge. Actually, I have a hard time reading books, sitting down and reading them, so I listen to the audiobooks that you guys offer. There's a large selection, and I'm just really grateful for it, and thanks for presenting.
Thank you very much.
Councilwoman Miller?
Well, I can tell you, we really miss our library.
Yeah.
It looks like we're gonna be in year 2 without a library. And I think one of the most important things that I've missed is seeing the seniors walk down there and be able to get on the internet, or go down and make a copy, you know, and still get out and get some books, especially the little ones. Was there anything the library can do for us to allow somehow these seniors to get copies of papers they might need? Somehow to maybe set up somewhere, a place that they can order books and have them brought into Linden, because, you know, cars might be an issue, or driving. And like I said, we really miss it. I live on Tickner Street, so I see everything that, you know, goes into the library, and the librarians we have are amazing. So I hope we don't lose those in the future either.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
So that's, what I've been seeing and a lot missed, with our library gone.
I can answer that question if you want. Okay, sure. So one of the things we have is something called homebound. And I think that because if you have anybody in Linden who can't get out, we have relocated our Linden libraries at Fenton. He's there, he sees Linden people there all the time. It's really nice for them to see that familiar face there at the Fenton branch. What you can do is we have something called homebound. You can sign up for that, and we can send books through the mail, so we can do that. As far as seniors getting access to photocopying and that, maybe here at LOCI, that's something LOCI could do, is maybe help pick up that slack until we get that building back open again. So I can tell you that people are ecstatic that when we tell them, we know that we're gonna be back in the middle building.
On the staff, to go back to the mill building. So thank you very much.
Councilman Dick?
No questions tonight.
Councilwoman Howard?
The library is a jewel of the community. It's, you know, it's wonderful because so many people could go there, whether they, like you mentioned, they can't can't really afford to buy books, but you can go to the library and always get a great one. So, it's a good thing for the kids because then they learn great habits for reading, not just this.
Councilman Ling.
Glad we were able to get you back into the mill. It seemed to be what a lot of people wanted to have happen, so that's good to have you back there. And, other than that, I'm good, thank you.
So I want to start with, thank you for coming. I really appreciate your time of coming out tonight and showing us all of the slides and the presentation. We are very excited to welcome the library back into the mill. I think that is probably one of the things I'm most excited about during my term. But I have a couple questions, if you don't mind. Okay. So is the GDL planning on increasing the millage rate on the 26th ballot, or are they gonna keep it the same?
No, it'll be a renewal.
A renewal?
The
Okay.
renewal will likely be in August. The board hasn't voted specifically yet, but that's what I anticipate.
Okay, I read that in the minutes, but I wasn't 100% sure on that one bit, so thank you. All right. So does the GDL have a capital improvement plan or a large expenditure other than the legacy, healthcare cost, and pension cost that explains the large reserve balance?
Yeah, we have an equipment fund replacement balance that is for some of that, so
Okay,
all of the equipment that we have, I think it's over $500,000 we've set aside. And
okay,
we put into that each year out of our budget to help build that as well. So
okay,
we have that. We do know that we will have things like, that will expend out of there. We have 2 vehicles that we will have to replace eventually. Also, our integrated library system, I don't know if you're familiar with that, that's the thing that you go into when you check out the books. That thing, when you go out and you bid a new one for that, the transition for there can be quite expensive, when you're doing that, because you're taking records from one company and moving them to another company, and both of those companies want to have hands in your pocket. So in the future, when we decide to go ahead and do that, so we can bring those costs down, if we find something better, it's good to have that money in reserve for that as well, so,
okay.
yeah.
So I guess then the question that I have is there any possibility of lowering the millage rate? Because based on the numbers that I have here, I mean, going through what you were saying, it just is quite hefty. Currently, y'all's reserve balance is $15 million.
No, it's not, it's probably closer to 12. It's about 100% of what our budget is.
Okay, because it was all taken right off the website, so I just.
Yeah, we have our own up there too, and I'd be happy to sit down and go over.
I would like that very much.
Yeah, sure, I can bring my finance manager along.
I would, just because I want to make sure that,
And just to put it in perspective for you, $10 million budget, we budget, for $50,000 in surplus.
okay.
But if we do a good job of keeping costs down, let's say we come in at 95% of our budget, well, that's $500,000 that then goes into our surplus, right? So part of what doing well is being good custodians of the taxpayers' money. We're not spending more than we're bringing in. And when we come in below budget, that's how we build up
Right.
your reserve balance. So like I said, we started with 0, and it was our goal to build that up, pay down our long-term liabilities. We are on track for that right now. So
I can see
that's
that.
where we're at, yeah.
Okay, all right. I appreciate your time, thank you.
Sure, you're welcome.
Does anyone have any further questions? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Next is the AARP Network of Age-Friendly Communities. By Sadie, Shattuck.
Hi everyone, thank you for having me. My name is Sadie. I'm the communications analyst for AARP Michigan, and I also lead our local communities and age-friendly work throughout the state. I do have a few slides as well, but you all have a handout as well that covers a lot of this information. And we can go ahead and get started. Perfect. So, as the largest percentage was in like the mid-30s to mid-50s range. In 2020, you can see that that population pyramid has really shifted up, with the largest percentage around the mid-50s to around age 70 area. If you aren't aware, Michigan is actually the fastest aging state in the country. And so AARP's Global Communities and Age-Friendly work is trying to just make sure that communities are ready for this population shift as people continue to grow older and live longer. So AARP had some research come out this past June that said that 87% of adults 45 and older say that it is extremely or very important for them to stay in their own homes as they age. And this is, the main focus of our age-friendly work is to make sure that people have the resources and the capabilities to be able to stay in their homes as they age, because that is what most people would like to do. So a little bit about what an age-friendly community is and the foundation of it. First, I want to say that this is my first time in Linden, and when I was just driving downtown and on this road out here, the beautiful park by the lake with the colors right now is amazing, and downtown is just very lively. There are a lot of people walking and lots of Halloween decorations, and so just driving through for my first time, I can see that you all are already doing a lot of these things. And I also noticed farther down in the agenda that you all have been talking about a dementia-friendly community, and we work really closely with the people in the state that do that work. And so I know that you already care about a lot of these issues, and the main thing that I like to point out when I give these presentations is we don't want this to be more work on your community. We want this to be a resource for you and to the plans that you already have to help older adults in your community to be able to give you resources and support to continue that work. So AARP, in conjunction with the World Health Organization in 2012, was created the Age-Friendly Network, and these are the foundations of it. We call them the 8 domains of livability. You can read through all of those, but pretty much what they're supposed to cover is both the built and social environment of someone's life. So making sure that they have, again, resources that they need to be able to live in the way that they wish to live as they age. A little bit about the process. So it's a 5-year cycle. We don't necessarily hold communities to exactly 5 years to be able to get through this process. I always say, it's your community, it can be on your own timeline, and we'll work with you on that, but this is just a framework that a lot of communities decide to follow, since it's helpful in making sure that you're moving along your age-friendly initiatives. And so the first part is to enroll in the network. You can see on that document, I think it's on the top of the back side, it talks about what you need to do to be able to enroll. And so that's a letter from the jurisdiction's highest elected official, so the mayor here, and then you submit an application. It's pretty simple on our website, just saying that you're interested in joining and what you plan to do as a member of the network. We talk with you and get back to you on your application, and then the whole first year is conducting a community needs assessment. This could be a survey, this could be community conversations. It's really up to you on what that looks like. A lot of communities maybe already have a survey that they do in the community, and so you just maybe put a couple questions in there that are age-friendly focused, and that could be your community needs assessment. It doesn't need to be something super additional onto what you're already doing. And we have draft surveys, and we have community focus group materials for you all to use for that. Year 2 is actually developing an action plan. I see a lot of communities across the state put together steering committees, age-friendly steering committees. Maybe it's, residents, a mix of residents and city staff. That can really look like what you want it to, but we have draft action plans for you to look at too, and we don't require it to hit on all of those 8 domains of livability that I talked about. Again, it's just the ones that come up for you in your community needs assessment that you'd like to focus on. Years 3 to 5 is implementing the action plan and tracking any progress. So I always say this is, if you're putting together a steering committee, this is where they really come into play, making sure that you're moving forward those action plan items. And then year 5 is generally submitting a progress report to AARP about the work that you've done. And then it kind of starts all over again. You can do another community needs assessment if you need to, but mostly it's developing a new action plan, talking about, what are some even more next steps that you want to take. What things didn't we get done in the first action plan that we want to keep moving forward. So it's a little bit about the process. I'm happy to say that we have 14 age-friendly communities in Michigan. Our very first one was Auburn Hills. They joined in 2013. They just submitted their second action plan to us, so they've been through this process twice now and are a great resource to all of our other age-friendly communities that are working through this process as well, and so we rely on them a lot to share their experience. And then our newest age-friendly community is Traverse City. They just joined, I think, last month. And so we also had our first age-friendly community in the UP join earlier this year, Escanaba, and Marquette is planning to as well later this year. So we've seen a lot of growth in this area in the last couple of years for our office. And for us, it's really a great way to be able to support communities at a very local level. In the past, AARP and the state have been very state-focused, maybe working with legislators at the state level, and we still do that, but we're trying to do more local work, and this age-friendly work is the best way that we've seen for us to be able to do that. And then, if you aren't aware, Michigan is also an age-friendly state. Since 2019, it was the 5th in the nation, I believe, and the first in the Midwest to join the network. And so I work really regularly with a steering committee at the state level to move along age-friendly initiatives for the state, mostly with the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. And so, again, this is just a great time for communities to get involved because they actually just submitted their first action plan, and their top priority is, again, just like we are, supporting communities at the local level to be able to do this work. And so, it's a real emphasis right now from the governor and from different state departments. And so, just at the state level as well, they want to make sure that we're ready for these demographic shifts. I have a short video, if it'll play all right. This is Grand Rapids. Of course. It's okay if it doesn't work.
Well, it is pretty.
It's okay. You guys keep trying for just a second. I can talk a little bit about what's in the video, then, but if you can't get it to play, then it's all good. So I'll just talk a little bit about Grand Rapids real quick. So Grand Rapids has been a member of the Age Friendly Network for, I want to say, since 2019 as well, and they've really embraced the work. There actually are only community in the state that has staff at the city level dedicated to this work. They have a full-time staff member that all they do is work on their age-friendly initiatives. And I just want to give a few examples So,
spent months talking to neighbors and
What does it mean for a city to truly be a home for its residents? It means listening, planning, and building a future where everyone has a place. That's the goal of an age-friendly city.
So the city of Grand Rapids, we were really interested in moving forward with becoming an age-friendly city, largely because of the feedback from residents and community members.
they've spent months talking to neighbors and community members to understand how do we create a city that they want to be in, that they're like, yeah, I'm from Grand Rapids.
AARP, they have a wealth of knowledge and information. They come alongside us and help us with collecting data and surveys, identifying where our gaps are, and then what potential solutions are.
A great idea needs a great team. The city's commitment found a perfect match in AARP, a partner dedicated to improving the lives of people 50 plus and the communities they call home.
The World Health Organization says that by 2030, 1 in 6 people will be over the age of 60. So they took it upon themselves in 2016 to begin this age-friendly work, and we're still doing it today.
We're working so hard through Grand Rapids and the age-friendly process that AARP supports to engage people and to find a place in the community that's meaningful to them.
We've done this through transportation with the rapid bus. We've done this through the sidewalks, making them a curve down instead of a curve up. And then with all their trails and parks, they include benches for individuals to walk and relax and also rest and really enjoy the parks here in our city. Our city's invested in making sure that everyone can enjoy it throughout their entire lifespan. Grand Rapids is a city for all.
With AARP's help, an age-friendly city truly becomes a city for all. When you design a city for one group, you make it better for everyone. And that's the mission of AARP.
Thank you, Brad. So as you can see, they've been doing a lot of work. You saw like they call it Granby Land, it's like Handy Land, and what they were doing is they found a community, a neighborhood that their sidewalks were just in really rough shape. There was never anyone out walking because of that. People just felt unsafe, and so they did a whole project where they looked at, speed limits in the area. They looked at fixing up the sidewalks, but then on top of that, they painted like a game of Candyland on the sidewalk to get kids and families and older adults and everyone outside on those sidewalks in the neighborhood, just to get out and meet each other. And so that was one project that they've worked on. We also have been working with them on a farm market in a similar neighborhood that just has not a lot of access to fresh produce and not a grocery store that's in walking distance. And so they're putting in a farmer's market that'll be open year round that people can come and get produce for free. And then also they're gonna do cooking classes and financial security and healthy living classes and things like that. So that all came out of their age-friendly action plan. So we were really excited about some of the work happening there. I wanted to go over just a few resources that we offer at the state level. This is our age-friendly portal. So AARP has obviously a whole network of communities. We actually have, I just heard today, over 1,000, we finally have 1,000 communities across the country that are a part of the AARP network. And all of those communities talk to each other on our age-friendly portal. And so if you have an idea about something, likely someone in an age-friendly community somewhere in the country has done something similar, and you can ask them, about it on the portal. So it's a really great resource just to be able to talk to communities across the country about this type of work. And then I'm really happy to say as well that this year we just launched our new Michigan Age-Friendly Communities Grant Program. This is our first time at the state level AARP awarding grants to our age-friendly communities. And so this year we had 2 different communities that received funding for projects, one for that healthy living farmers market that I talked about, and the other one is for the city of River Rouge, which is downriver from Detroit. they saw a need for older adults in their community to get transportation to doctor's offices, the library, the grocery store, things like that. And so we're working with them to put together a transportation program that's run out of the city. And so that came about from this grant program, and we have even more money that we're gonna be granting next year in this program. And so it's just another resource to help you, accomplish the projects and this work that you're hoping to. And that's, in addition to AARP nationally, has what they call the Community Challenge Grant. In Michigan, we probably see close to like 200 applications in this program a year. We at our state office go through and review every single one of those. But ultimately, our national office gets to decide who gets the funding for the Community Challenge Grant. But we usually see about, I would say like 5 to 8 projects in Michigan get funded every year through this program, from all over the state, not just our age-friendly communities. And so it's just another opportunity for you to get involved with AARP, and again, get funding for projects that you're looking at. And then just another resource that we have an e-newsletter that comes out weekly, and it has, again, a lot of those resources that are in our portal. You can sign up for the newsletter and you can get those right in your inbox and hear what communities are doing across the country in this work. And that's our state age-friendly webpage if you're interested in learning more. And I have cards as well and my contact information. Kristen should have, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about the matter.
I want to thank you first for coming. So I met your counterpart at the MAM conference.
Oh, yes.
And was very excited to bring this option to Linden. So thank you so much for coming
Of course,
out today.
happy to.
All right, so Councilman Lincoln.
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Councilwoman Howard.
For both the grants, are the requirements on the webpage then? And who gets to apply for what type of projects?
Yeah, so it's kind of a mix between the two. So I'll go first because it's a little bit more simple with our Michigan age-friendly communities grant program. So yes, the details are on that webpage, and if you just type in the name of the grant into Google, it should come up. But mostly we're looking to fund, again, projects in our 14 age-friendly communities in the state, around projects that just related to their action plan. So in any of those 8 domains of livability that supported older adults, we were looking to fund in that category. We have a mix of staff and volunteer reviewers on both grant programs. And so for that one, we found that they were really looking at like meeting critical needs. So that's why you see like the fresh produce and the transportation were the ones that came out of that one, and those are the ones that we awarded. For our Community Challenge grant, it's a little bit different. This is a massive program. AARP gives out like millions of dollars a year. There's 3 different categories in that. Flagship grants, I think can range up to $25,000. I think they call the middle category demonstration grants, and that's up to $10,000. And then they have another category that's like quick action projects. It's like $2,500 is like the maximum. Yeah.
What are examples of the projects you award?
Yeah, so for our Michigan program, I mentioned the fresh produce and the transportation program. For the Community Challenge grant, we see everything from like funding walk audits in communities. There's a lot of those that we fund in that quick action category. There's also, I meant the Candyland game in Grand Rapids. That was actually a Community Challenge grant project. That's how they got funded. And so that's one that came out of that one. We saw in I think it was City of Holland, they wanted to do benches along the park. And so that got funded through the Community Challenge Grant. In another community, they had a lot of like historical buildings that weren't accessible, and so they wanted to make them ADA compliant, and that one got funded. So the Community Challenge Grant is a wide array, but their main mission is just to projects supporting the livability of older adults.
Councilwoman Simons?
Thank you for presenting. I'm very familiar with AARP and have cruised your website a few times. Just looking at it now, it's very intuitive. Thank you so much.
Councilwoman Miller?
Well, everything presented today seems really good, especially when we go with their dementia, which we're planning to do with that. Anything we can do in our city to bring positivity and, get everybody involved, get outside, is great. Thank you for coming.
Councilman Dick?
No, go over everyone's comments, thank you for coming out tonight. Obviously, we're in our senior center, so.
Yes.
Yeah, it fits right in. Hopefully we'll be working in the future, thank you.
And do any residents have any questions?
I'd like to point out something. If you're a member of AARP, you can save money at motels. And also take a class and get a break on your insurance for driving.
Yes, yeah, that one's been really popular lately, yeah. For any of you who don't know, if you take AARP's defensive driving course, some car insurances will give you a discount if you give them your certificate that you passed the course. That's great. Expensive car insurances, so.
Tess is actually engaged with bringing the defensive driving course to Rosie, right?
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, on that one.
Excellent, excellent, thank you. All right, any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, thank you again so much
Yeah,
for coming.
thank
I
you so
really
much. And
appreciate it.
yeah, as you're looking to hopefully, apply or fill out the application, where you can give us a call, email, we're happy to help, or to come out and present to more community members if that would be a help. So thank you.
Thank you so much. We have no public hearings and no correspondence this evening, so we're gonna move on to public comment on non-agenda items. Flair Salon. Thank you.
I have the salon on Broad Street, across from City Hall, and we are very excited that the Linden Mill is getting redone. We can't wait to have the library back, and, we're thankful for that. With the back parking lot being closed off for 10 months or so, we were wondering if it was possible to, at least during that 10-month period, have signs out front, in front of those businesses, Serendipity, the iPlace, and the Union Black, and the 9, like 2-hour parking. That would help us a ton, because we have a lot of elderly, and there are a lot of, workers from Dr. Wax's office that park there. Wednesday night, we saw 4 from Dr. Wax's and 2 from the pediatrician and their scrubs, and that took up 6 parking spots right in front. And if we could temporarily have some signs put up for 2-hour parking or customer parking or something, is that anything that could possibly be done for the next 10 months?
Just to let you know, I'm not trying to be rude at all, okay? So public comment, you speak, and then, our city manager, after public comment concludes, if she has an answer available, we'll give it to you. If not, she will email you.
Okay.
Based on this.
Okay.
Okay, just wanted to let you know.
Okay.
Okay. And that'll be after public comment, all of them. All of them.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming. Monica Larner.
So I'm
I'm Monica Larner, and I live at 152 West Ralston. And tonight, on behalf of the American Legion Auxiliary, I wanted to, first off, thank Counselor Dick for helping us at our booth. He helped us set up and tear down, and he was a great help, so I really appreciate that. And kind of touching on the library part of things, the auxiliary has set out what we call a book crate for the children, and especially at the boutique. She says they come in and they sit down cross-legged, right in front of that, and they read, or they go right next door to the book place and they read, and she's very impressed, that it's popular. And then kind of moving on, so we have Veterans Day coming up, and so in a Saturday, is November 1st. So we are trying to paper Linden with the appreciation signs, the We Love Veteran signs. And so we'd like to have them up, so when the veterans come to the dinner that we have on November 7th, that they see that Linden appreciates their service. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Gates, yours will be with that item. Ellen, do you want to do that now, or do you want to wait?
I didn't know, is that all about public comment
That's,
then? Okay, so Tammy, I think I actually just emailed you back today too in regards to the Broad Street mill and resurface. So, but we are hearing, frustration with the parking and things like that. We are hearing that it's employees and things. Tessa is preparing, and she's our community outreach, individual. She's preparing, we've been trying to send regular updates and reminding everyone about the parking situation and to please be mindful of that and leave it open, within the downtown. So she's preparing, another update that, will hopefully, get the downtown businesses to recognize that their employees are parking within that area. We brought up the 2-hour parking at the DDA and things like that, and I know like for the day spa, they said that's gonna be a challenge for them because a lot of their customers come and are there for 4 or 5 hours at a time. So 2-hour parking limit's gonna be challenging for them. The other issue with that is enforcement of it. It's really challenging for us to be able to try to enforce something like that. We don't have the capacity right now. So I think our approach at this point is trying to just get education and communication out to the business owners to try to make sure that they're being mindful of that. We've had a couple situations where I personally got out and drove, and a lot of the outlying parking lots are still very vacant and have availability. So it's just getting them to, instill in their staff to, park out. So I'll continue to follow up with that, can stay engaged with us, and we'll continue to try to make sure that that's happening. But we do know that it's a challenge. With the bridge or the Broad Street mill and resurface, that project's it's not a complete reconstruct, so it's gonna go a little bit faster than, most road projects and stuff. So it shouldn't pose, additional, but it will be disruption, at times and stuff, but hopefully minimal. I mean, it's a mill and resurface, so it's not reconstruct, so it should move along pretty fast. But we are hearing similar, frustration. I know boutique and things like that have reached out and stuff as well. So we'll try to do the best that we can to reach out to the business community and communicate that. Please be mindful and leave that, parking available to the downtown businesses and stuff, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Moving on to the consent agenda. Do we have a motion?
I will make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
I second.
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Simon? Yes. Lee?
Yes.
Armstrong?
Yes.
Holly?
Yes.
We have no unfinished business. Moving on to new business. Conditional zoning request for 210 Oak Street.
May Madam Mayor, I guess I'll actually let, Adam take that topic on, if you don't mind.
Yes, so at the prior council meeting, as you know, this was on your agenda, and the vote came to a 3-3 tie with no formal decision. At the time of, after the meeting, the applicant who made the request reached out to city administration, inquiring as to whether the vote could be back to the city council agenda so that maybe there could be a conclusion one way or the other based on having the presence of a full council. There were 6 that evening, so it was a 3-3 tie. The council has 7 full members. And so that's why we brought it back on the agenda in case there was a full council to potentially make a vote, yes or no, one way or the other. But we do not have a full council agenda this evening. So I would imagine, unless, I don't know, Ellen or a city attorney, I believe we should not take action this evening because we do not have a full council agenda.
I share that, the request was to have a full council vote on it, and the full council's not present. So, my recommendation would be that you postpone it and take it up when you have 7 members.
I believe that's gonna be December. Because Denise is going to not be here for the next one.
Is there a motion?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to postpone conditional rezoning request for Shattuck.
Support.
Armstrong?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Simon?
Yes.
Howard?
Yes.
Dick?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes. Ordinance number 423, an ordinance amending chapter 90 animals.
So as you guys seen at the work session previously, this is the state ordinance. I did not receive any additional feedback, so it's here tonight for your consideration. Chief Sutter and Attorney Jones would probably speak to it if there was any additional questions. Just looking for approval.
Councilwoman Simon, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Councilwoman Miller?
Can you skip me?
Okay. Councilman?
No questions.
Councilwoman Howard?
No questions.
Councilman Lee?
I'm gonna give this up to Denise. I have no questions.
Does any resident have any questions? Mrs. Meredith, go right ahead. She looks.
So I wanted to ask, was any consideration thought about for the bird feeders? That was my concern, is I don't think that fits into what you're trying to do. Because they're gonna go to where the food source is, and bird feeders are our food source. So if you're trying to take away the food source, that should be included, in my opinion.
Anything to add on?
No. I mean, it's in here that it addresses bird feeders at least 4 feet off the ground, but I don't have anything further to add on that.
Madam Mayor, I'm okay.
You're good?
Yep. Thank you.
All right. So is there a motion for ordinance number 423?
I make the motion for ordinance,
Support.
It's to adopt.
to adopt.
Lee?
Yes.
Armstrong?
Yes.
Howard?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Dick?
Yes.
Simon? Yes.
Ordinance number 424, an ordinance amending sections 154.117 zoning ordinance, site and exterior lighting.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I'll let Adam take the lead on that.
The planning commission has been working on proposed changes with regard to site and exterior lighting, so lighting requirements. This was prompted by a request in, and really good input from a citizen, Mr. Dietz, who is here this evening, who provided information to the planning commission, brought up some discussion topics, shared with the planning commission some best practices from other communities with regard to lighting regulation. The planning commission then did take that input and put that into proposed amendments to the zoning ordinance, to section 154.117. And the planning commission did hold a public hearing at their October meeting, and they did recommend to the council adoption of those changes. The draft of the ordinance is included for you. Just as a quick summary, it includes a new purpose statement that explains what is our governmental interest in regulating lighting. New applicability section has been added, clarifying what lighting is subject to the requirements. New definitions to clarify terms such as glare, light trespass, and shielding. The maximum ground illumination levels within a site and at the property lines have been revised based on best practices and standards from comparable communities. New language requiring lighting within the commercial and industrial districts to be turned off during overnight hours has been added. And then new exemptions to the requirements have been added, such as holiday lights, for example. The other thing I wanted to mention, and this is from the planning commission, they're suggesting that in addition to these ordinance changes, that the city roll out maybe an educational or informational campaign, so to speak, just to make sure that our residents become aware of the new lighting requirements, why they're important, why they've been enacted, and what you can do as a resident to be a good neighbor and make sure that you're in compliance with the requirements. If you have any questions for me, I'd be glad to try to answer them.
Councilman Dick?
No questions. Planning commission worked on this along with Mr. Dietz with his input for a few meetings. We went back and forth, made some changes, and the biggest thing to realize that this applies to everyone going forward. It's everyone that currently has property built and lighting. You don't have to go out and change anything if you're grandfathered in. But this would apply to all new construction.
Councilwoman Hound?
I don't have any questions.
Councilman Link?
Yeah, mine was Brad kinda answered a little bit there that, with the grandfather clause, I guess, how, is there a time frame when all this would be enforced, like there would be new, as far as the city portion of the lighting and all? And what would the cost, have we looked at what the cost impact would be for us to, meet these standards?
So I think to Councilmember Dick's point, so these standards would be applicable to new developments moving forward, so new construction in the community. New lighting that might be installed would meet the standards. The planning commission wrestled with those questions as well, and the challenge. Let's admit, it's a challenge to regulate lighting. And that's why the planning commission is recommending, and we're certainly suggesting that this be accompanied by an informational, educational campaign to try and encourage people to bring their sites, even if they're not planning to redo their lighting. Maybe they look at the requirements and they be like, okay, I think this is a good idea, let me come in line and follow in and do that. So that's the method. There has not been any discussions that I'm aware of at this point that the city would go in and start enforcing and do a door-to-door, site-by-site survey to make sure that people are in compliance and start issuing tickets and things of that nature. That's never been on the table necessarily.
And it was more towards the city, right? Obviously, the businesses are grandfathered in, but it is the lights for the city.
Well, yeah, so, the city has properties, such as where we're at right here, that has lighting, and maybe some of the properties that the city maintains aren't necessarily meeting the standards. So, I'm not aware of a cost that's been associated with the city, purchasing new lights or redoing lights to come into compliance.
Would the city also be under the grandfather clause?
Of course.
Yep,
Yes.
okay. And then the only other question I had was, certain sections, it talked about certain sections being turned off at night. Chief, maybe, downtown and stuff like that, I think it's important to keep lights on. If you turn the lights off, well, you know, it leads a little bit more to maybe trouble, right? So I guess Chief would probably be more versed on speaking on that topic.
That's a great point. When we do our new business checks, I always check to see if they have lighting on the exterior, always. It's just too good to light up your windows so that we can see as well, and it helps prevent crime. That's a good point.
I will point out in the language that the after hours in the commercial and industrial districts does not apply to security lighting.
Okay.
So it's implied that there is some level of security lighting, but it's really the parking lot lighting for customers that aren't coming at the overnight hours is what we're asking to be turned off. So the security lighting would be wall lighting, door lighting, things of that nature. And of course, that wouldn't apply to street lights that are in the street rights of way and whatnot.
Okay, so we could choose like a parking area, right? I would think you'd wanna keep a parking lot lit up. I had a friend who was troublesome as a child, and parking lots is where he would go. Speaking for my friend. But no, I mean, just, but we could regulate which lights and all, we can determine which ones stay on, which ones.
Absolutely, so as part of the new, and it's even written in here too, is that the applicant, as part of the new construction project, they would provide us with their security lighting.
Okay.
And they would also provide us with what is not security lighting or above and beyond, and what the dimming of the parking lot lights will be set during overnight hours for security purposes versus what they may allow us to have when the site is actually.
Okay.
Great questions.
Yep, thank you.
If there is any issues, you might want.
Talk to my friend.
Councilwoman Simons.
Thank you very much. I agree with this. I would just encourage people that do have issues with neighbors. I've looked at a few of these things here regarding the sky glow and the trespassing of light sources. But I would just encourage people to talk to their neighbors if they're having issues. You know, we don't wanna run to our city and, create all kinds of havoc that way. I don't think we had any issues with people, have we, with lighting from neighbors? Not that you know of.
I mean, I don't think a ton. I know that we've had some questions with like the mill pond, the light travel across the mill pond, stuff like that, but not a ton. We had some during a movie, they were shooting a movie, stuff like that, but they're very random, on a consistent basis.
That's all I have.
Councilwoman Miller.
Well, I guess I have a couple of questions. Is this a voting, meeting tonight, or is it a workshop? It's voting. I'd like to know more about it, read more into what the planning commission had, maybe have the public out to ask questions. Maybe put it on the next work session so we can really dive into it if possible.
So Madam Mayor, if I could, to that point, what you have been given tonight is really what it would look like as a final product. It isn't in the proper formatting for you all to adopt. So it will be coming back to you. I think they're looking at, they've highlighted the changes that were made. You should know that this went to the planning commission. The planning commission had to have hearings, hear from the public and so on. And so this has already gone through that process. Not to say you can't do it again, but you are going to be seeing it again from me. And I just thought I'd throw that out.
Thank you very much, Mike, that does help a lot. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So at the end of the ordinance, it says at a regular meeting, Linden City Council held on October 27th, 2025, so we're supposed to disregard that?
That's
It's like a resolution.
My understanding is administration is just looking for your comments about the highlighted changes. And then I need, once I hear all those comments, I will put it in proper formatting and then bring it back to you. So there's not going to be a motion to adopt necessarily. Am I wrong about that?
There's no highlighted changes.
I thought we were adopting.
Yeah, there's no
I think,
That was, the next topic, the housing focus zoning
The housing
amendment
focus.
still
I'm
needs to come
confused
in
with
ordinance
the-
format.
So-
This language is in ordinance format, so it is ready for adoption. Not to say that we can't hold a work session or discuss it further. But yeah, I will agree to the point the planning commission did hold a legally noticed public hearing on this site exterior lighting requirements ordinance.
So my apologies, I'm questioning why all the folks on this end, let me get to the all through that. It's that you're wrong.
That's why.
It's kind, Mike.
So, going with that then, so people, that have lighting problems right now, all them, every one of them are grandfathered. Businesses like a dentist office, they're grandfathered, as of today. And going forward, we're gonna suggest or make an ordinance that they have to be within the lighting spectrum.
Anytime there's a change to the zoning ordinance, those changes are prospective only. They can only take effect into the future. If you have a parking lot with lighting right now, and you've had it for a period of time, you are what's called grandfathered. And you lose that status if you redevelop the property, or you wanna add, 5 more light poles, for example. In which case, then you've gotta bring your property into compliance with the new standards,
Okay.
okay?
My understanding, we don't grandfather?
No, it is, I'm sorry.
No, but I thought we had something that we could grandfather.
Grandfather is unique to zoning. If you're talking about a dog leash, for example, it's a non-zoning ordinance, those, the grandfathered status does not kick in. But when you're talking about zoning, you're talking about property rights that are vested, and you can't interfere with those vested property rights.
Okay, I understand, thank you.
I'm gonna totally go out of bounds for a minute. Chief Sutter, do you see any problems with this in the downtown zone, or I think the only concern I have is at night, the deer population, and sometimes if you have less light, you are less likely to see them. And that's the concern I have.
Right, but I think from what I'm gathering here, is that the current lighting situation in Linden is going to stay the same. So that won't affect what we're talking about. It's a great point, Madam Mayor, and, but the lights do help us see things, but, as I said, the current situation there with our lighting will stay the same.
Okay,
So we're good to go, I think.
that was my main
Yeah,
concern.
thank you.
All right. Is there a motion on ordinance number 424?
I will make a motion that we approve amendment of section 154.117 of chapter 154 of the Code of Ordinances.
Support.
Miller,
Yes.
Simon,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Dick,
Yes.
Klink,
Yes.
Armstrong.
Yes.
Madam Mayor, would you still want to let the residents speak?
Oh my God.
That poor guy back here.
I'm so sorry.
You know, I'm gonna talk. I don't care.
Come on up. You wrote it, I'm so sorry.
Get up here and
I
talk.
apologize, come on up here.
That question on top of
There you go,
my
Mike Deeds,
I
about
feel like
exterior
it's-
lighting, I
I
apologize.
have a comment as well.
Someone else has a comment?
Go ahead.
Okay. So I'm sorry, I'm just gonna give you the whole spiel on it, but I think it did pass, right? Is that what I just heard? Thank you very much. So, this light pollution from exterior lighting is a growing problem. Astronomers and environmentalists began documenting it as a problem in the 1970s, noting that sky glow is impairing research in wildlife. So it's interesting, if anybody here is born before 1970, such as I, then you could once see around 3,000 stars, and you could step out the front door and see the Milky Way, which you can no longer do. New technologies are worsening the problem of light pollution and exterior lighting. This modern bright LED lighting has become very inexpensive. Also, the tendency towards cool bluish-white light scatters more in the atmosphere and creates a worse problem of light pollution. It's interesting to note that in North America, the night sky is brightening at a rate of 10% per year due to light pollution, based on a study from 2011 to 2022. This means that the night sky is effectively doubling in brightness every 7 years. This means that a child born today in a location similar to ours, maybe they could see around 250 stars instead of the 3,000. But if they could see 250 stars today, when they graduate from high school, they'll only be able to see about 100. 9 months ago, several residents came to the planning commission and talked about how exterior lighting and light pollution is impacting their lives. They talked about how it interrupts their comfort and repose at home, how it's interrupting their sleeping by shining in their windows, how it just shines in their windows all over, trying to watch television or anything. And these lights from outside, different businesses are shining in. How sitting outside trying to do stargazing is interrupted by the brightness of the sky, and how it impacts wildlife and pollinators. So reducing light pollution is the easiest form of pollution to control. If you can remember back, 15 years ago, like the whole Eastern Seaboard lost power, I was up in the UP, I didn't even know. But when everybody lost power, all lights went out, guess what? Light pollution was over. It was completely non-existent. So it's an easy thing to address. I'd like to thank the Planning Commission and Adam for all the work they've done on getting us to this part. And I do appreciate your positive vote for going forward. The question that I have is a lot of discussion about grandfathering, but I want to make sure it's very clear. If I had lighting out there today, I'm only grandfathered if it matches what my installation plan says I'm supposed to have. If I went in, like say, this morning, and doubled the wattage or lumens of my lighting, far beyond what my site plan calls for when I built the building, I am not in compliance, and I should be able to be addressed by the city and forced to fix it. So that's my question to somebody here. I want to make sure that's clear. Everybody's not grandfathered in, just those that are in compliance with the standard that was in place when they built the building. Thank you.
Yeah, that's correct. Grandfathering applies to a legally established, lawful use or characteristic of your site. So if the site plan was approved 3 years ago and it had a limit of certain wattage, for example, on the lighting, and they have, without city approval, upped their wattage or doubled their wattage by buying new lights and did not seek approval from the city for that, technically, those new lights would not be considered legal non-conforming. And the city could enforce the requirement to take them back to what it was approved for. That's correct.
And I believe Mrs. Lerner, you had a comment, and I apologize to everyone that I did not do that. I usually try to be so good and I completely zoned, so I apologize.
So, my concern is a safety concern. So I live right across from all commercial. And like the garage door place, they have semis 24 hours. So, you know, it was suggested that, you know, you talk to your neighbor or whatever, you know, and have them, you know, turn off the lights, especially on commercial. Well, that's not safe for me, it's not safe for them. So, you know, I don't agree with that part.
I just wanted to state, for the problem with some of these things, like, having to turn off things like parking lot lights and after a certain amount of time, is if that property owner views that as a safety thing, then that would actually open potentially into a legal can of worms, because, if they view it as a safety thing, then that could not technically be enforced. And then also, when it comes to studies, there were scientific studies in the 1970s that said by 2020 we would be in a new ice age, and that hasn't happened. So there's studies on everything under the sun, and most of them are very contradictory. I've seen several studies when I got my history degree. There were 10 different studies, and every single one of them had a different outcome. So the problem is here, some of this stuff is not entirely set in stone. Like some of the light pollution stuff is a thing, but it's not. Some of these studies in relation to the light pollution and things like that aren't entirely set in stone. My concern is if you're going to legislate things like that, businesses like the gas station have these lights on for a reason. If you've seen what's going on nationally when it comes to crime, increasing crime in places like Portland or all these different big cities, there were several studies done on this, if you want to bring on studies, and most of them stated that by having more security lights, it actually deterred crime, and it made business owners and property owners feel safer. So my concern is just like is also for the safety thing, and what we should and should not. We should not be a city that legislates based on the whim of the moment or based on what one person says, or it should be more of a wider group effort. You know, we can't just legislate based on the moment. You have to think about some of these things before you vote for them and put them forward. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you.
I say one thing to Jerry. What we're looking for here in this standard.
Actually, I think Ramona had her hand up.
Yeah, when it comes to outdoor lighting, I know that, I used to teach science, and a lot of my students have never seen the Milky Way. Well, a lot of problems with the security lights is that if they are directed toward the building, downward, then the light pollution is not a problem. If the light scatters upward, and there's no reflector over the top of the light, then you have a problem with the light pollution. So maybe people can be encouraged to direct their lights downward toward the building, and that would help the police too, because they would be able to see things on the building rather than things on the roof.
My concern is the nanny state.
Okay, so Mr. Dietz, so you have to, your remarks have to be addressed to me. That's the nicest way.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
I want to let you know, for you and all the city council, that an example of where we're trying to go with this standard is the $2 stores. They have, from a light pollution perspective and an energy conservation and a cost saving perspective, done everything that we view as ideal. And there's two newest buildings in the city.
Madam Mayor, can I ask a question? Chief Sutter.
Yes, ma'am.
We have, as stated, we have the garage door. So if what they're doing right now would be okay and nothing can change.
That's how I see it, but, the other information that just came along, if they're not following what they were approved for back in the day, then it would potentially be a violation of the ordinance, which is, enforcement-wise, it's near impossible. I don't know how we would enforce that. I mean, we're not the light police, honestly.
Madam Mayor, so I think, it's specific to site plans that were approved previously, okay? So if their site plan was approved with specific lighting, those are the standards that they're held to. It's as simple as that. So in that instance, I would send it off to Adam. At that point, there would be some, I guess, investigation, Adam or whatever, and then Adam would make a determination if at some point he felt that it was necessary to get the police involved for something like that. It's no different than any other, requirements on a site plan. So, similar to, we've had discussions more recently at Beacon and Bridge for some items that they had not finished on their site plan. It's very similar to that, right? So those standards are approved in their site plan. If the garage door had a site plan that was approved, the garage door company that had a site plan that was approved years ago that had specific lighting standards that they could only adhere to, then that's what we would go back to and enforce. And it's all complaint based. The complaint will come in, we would funnel it to Adam, and then at that point, there would be correspondence or some investigation, and then anything further would be a discussion with, the staff and the police if necessary. But, yeah, just to clarify.
Thank you. We're gonna move on now to housing-focused zoning ordinance amendments.
I guess, Adam, why don't you?
Okay.
Take it.
This one also is coming from the Planning Commission. They have been, as you know, working on zoning ordinance amendments pertaining to housing. The Planning Commission discussed these amendments at numerous meetings starting back as of last December. The proposed amendments were brought to the City Council during a work session as well, so that you can digest the amendments and ask questions. The Planning Commission did hold a public hearing in October, and then after the public hearing was opened and closed, the Planning Commission voted to recommend adoption of the amendments. So this is, the project was following the recommendations coming from the city's fairly recently adopted master plan toward the end of 2023. And it's following along with those master planning recommendations, also just kind of the drive really across the country and the state within local municipalities to critically evaluate zoning requirements, particularly in light of kind of the housing market and what has been going on lately. So organizations such as the American Planning Association, Yakima Center for Public Policy, Smart Growth America, and Strong Towns, have really kind of made these arguments for zoning reform and kind of evaluating your zoning ordinance, noting that in many ways zoning regulations often work to kind of distort free markets, restrict property rights, and undermine local adaptability. Sometimes we may not even realize it, but poorly crafted zoning regulations may prevent property owners from making reasonable use of their property, or they may hinder the ability of communities to respond to changing economic, market, and demographic needs. So these amendments are proposed to the city zoning ordinance, are what we would call maybe just a small, but we think an important step to address housing needs by allowing a limited, greater diversity of housing types, reducing regulatory burdens, and fostering economic resilience in the housing arena. So the specific draft of amendments is dated October 23rd, 2025. At this point, we don't have it in ordinance format. We wanted to make it transparent and explicitly state and indicate what's being proposed to be changed and deleted. So that's the current format that it's in. No changes to the zoning map are proposed as part of this. This is just text amendments only. And from the public hearing, I don't know if you want to throw up the slide deck from the Planning Commission's public hearing. I think it is worthwhile kind of going through this just as a summary of what's included in the draft. Of course, I'd be glad to answer questions or address any of the details in the draft. In the definition section in the zoning ordinance, we're proposing to add new and revised definitions addressing contemporary residential types, assisted living, accessory dwelling unit, economy efficient dwelling. That's cottage courts maybe is a more common term, or maybe better known term. 3-family dwellings, townhouses, none of these were previously addressed or defined in the zoning ordinance. Second, across the city's zoning districts, some changes, either new or revised allowances for certain residential unit uses and residential care facility types across those zoning districts. I'll have some slides that kind of cover in a little bit more detail which use types and what are proposed in what districts. The Planning Commission also found that adult foster care large group homes, which by state definition could accommodate even 13 to 20 adults within a residential dwelling within a neighborhood, that was identified as a concern and is proposed to be eliminated as a possibility within the single family residential districts, the R1, R2, and R3 districts. Here is that use matrix which summarizes, you can see the use types in red are new or revised. And then really in the no changes proposed in the R1 and the R2 districts, two different types are proposed to be added as a possible allowance under special land use review and approval. So that's only after Planning Commission discretionary decision after a public hearing is held, and that's accessory dwelling units and also townhouses, 4 units or less. The next slides kind of summarize some of these. So accessory dwelling units. This is, I would think the Planning Commission kind of sees it as maybe an introductory allowance with some really stringent requirements for accessory dwelling units within the R3 district only. Again, only after special land use approval. It would give the opportunity for a property owner to apply to the Planning Commission to potentially have an accessory dwelling unit. Sometimes, we've heard these called as maybe in-law suites or granny flats. Those are some other terms maybe that you've heard. In this picture there, it would be that the back, so maybe the loft space in their garage has a self-contained unit. In order to even qualify per the proposed language, the lot would need to meet the minimum lot area. You could only have no more than 1 per lot. You need to have additional parking space in addition to what's required for the primary residence. And it's not to be turned into an income generating unit. It also wouldn't be eligible as a short-term rental. We would require a deed restriction to be placed on the property by the property owner, stating that they will be the occupier of this site. So they would have to either live in that accessory dwelling unit or in the dwelling unit itself, essentially keeping an eye and making sure that, if they're living there, they have a vested interest in making sure that everything, is good and it fits within the neighborhood context. And also part of that deed restriction that the unit could not be rented or leased separately. So again, not to be used as just a rental unit or as an income generating unit, but really it's for maybe an adult child, maybe a special needs adult child or something like that. Maybe it's an elderly parent, or maybe somebody who needs special care on the site, or even it could be a caregiver to you if you are the one who needs special care living in on that property there. So a small step to potentially allow these, but with significant restrictions in place. Townhouses, the term townhouse was not specifically used in the zoning ordinance. This set of amendments would just clarify that townhouses may be allowed in our multiple family district, certainly, but potentially as a special land use approval in the R3 district. The rules would not allow more than 4 attached units. It would require as a minimum that the lot has to be larger than the typical or than the minimum lot size that's required. Depending on the number of units, you'd need a greater square footage and also a greater lot width. So you couldn't just shoehorn something like this in between 2 residential homes, and even enhanced greater green belts around the perimeter of a development like this. So if you did, in theory, have a much larger site, potentially there could be, the property owner could propose a plan for Planning Commission review and approval as a special land use. Cottage courts, next slide. Cottage courts or economy efficient dwellings. It's essentially a complex of smaller units arranged around typically like a central courtyard or maybe a central feature. They could be rental units or they could be condominium, meaning owner units. This is only being proposed as an allowance in the R4, the multiple family residential district. This district is the one that already allows apartment complexes. So really what it's just doing is allowing another type of residential development, but really only in specific areas that are already have been identified as sufficient to accommodate other multiple family residential types. And there's even a minimum lot size requirement for this. So a limited kind of allowance in just the R4 district for this possibility here. Other changes within the local service and general commercial districts, just a line item to allow single family dwellings. If you may know, some of these districts have single family homes already. Some of them are being used as single family homes, so that would help for eliminate some nonconformities in those districts and just give those property owners options to stay as they are, but then over time, maybe they could convert to an office use or something like that. And we've seen multiple requests to the Planning Commission, people suggesting that, hey, I like that I'm zoned commercial, and maybe in time, I'd like to have my house converted, particularly on North Bridge Street in the north part of town, converted to an office. But for now, it has been used as a residential dwelling and should continue to use that way. But I'm not able to do that or sell it for mortgage purposes. So that's addressing a specific issue. Allowance, where it currently is not allowed in the zoning ordinance to have mixed-use buildings potentially within the commercial district, such as a second floor that has residential use above a commercial or office ground floor use. Allowance for multiple family dwellings in the central business district, so if there's a larger property that might mix both commercial and multifamily, that you could have some ground floor residential use as long as you also have ground floor non-residential commercial or office use. Some potential proposed minimum floor area reductions for dwellings throughout the zoning districts, just to allow for, if the market would support slightly smaller dwelling units, that the zoning ordinance would allow for that opportunity. This is part of the thought to make it more opportunities for more affordable housing units that could be afforded by young families, for example, or maybe people who are not as interested in larger homes at this stage in their life, for example, or for whatever reason. Adjustments to both the open space development option and the planned unit development option, just trying to make them feasible as development options. In the open space development option, the specific changes proposed are to allow for a 10% density bonus, but to require 33% at least open space of the site, where 20% is the minimum right now. So it's kind of a give or take. Like maybe we'll offer a modest density bonus, but we will expect a larger amount of open space that's preserved. In the planned unit development option, the only change there is to increase the minimum lot size for eligibility from 2 acres to 1 acre. That's stemming from the master plan. In the master plan, it identified 4 specific priority redevelopment sites, I believe is what the master plan called them. Most of them are like immediately adjacent to downtown, and we looked at the planned unit development as the likely development option for a site like that. Most of these call for maybe some sort of mixed use or mixed residential development. But currently, the minimum 2 acre lot size would rule out, I think it was 3 of the 4 development sites as even being a possibility to apply under the planned unit development option. All of the sites are over 1 acre, but 3 of the 4 are less than 2. So this language wouldn't fit, and that's the reason for the proposed change here. That's the summary that I have. I'd be glad to answer any specific questions you might have.
Councilman Link.
Yeah, I guess the one question is like in the business district, the CBD, the multi-family dwellings, does that include like apartment complexes, or wanna build that there? Or, cause you kinda mentioned, okay, you might have multifamily where, the dwellings where, okay, you have a business and an apartment upstairs, or a business and apartment on the first floor, but would that also allow the introduction of apartment complexes in those area, in that area?
Potentially. So the language currently reads in the central business district that there can be no ground level apartment use or residential use entirely. There can be upper floor residential use. We have had some inquiries, and there are some examples where there is a commercial frontage on the ground floor, but maybe the building is big enough that there actually is also one ground floor unit in addition to maybe 2 or 3 upper story units. And so that one ground floor unit is essentially non-conforming. As an example of maybe the Evans building, that's a very large building. The market probably wouldn't support the entirety of, let's say it was 2 stories, or they wanted to do 2-story development. Or actually, no, let's keep it 1 story, as it is right now. I don't know, is it 20,000 square feet, maybe 15,000 square feet? The market might not support 15,000 square feet of commercial or office space, but it could support some maybe ground floor units in the back portion, or maybe half of the square footage, as long as there's the commercial or office in the other half. And so it provides the planning commission the flexibility, and it also provides the market to dictate a little bit more about what should be the specific percentage of the floor areas dedicated to commercial versus residential use. Again, trying for market viability, and in many cases, having more, a couple more residential units could make or break the project. Yes, but to answer your question, if it's a very large site, I suppose, there aren't many, I suppose there could be the opportunity to have a mixed-use building up front and maybe a residential separate building in the back if it's big enough. In theory, this would open the door for that as well.
And then the other question is the reduction of the square footage in these different buildings, be it these one family or multi-family, but more specifically, I guess, the single family. So obviously, if it's smaller square footage, the value or the price of the home is gonna go less, which would also impact the surrounding homes' values as well. Because everybody's home, I believe, is based off the value of, the surrounding homes in that neighborhood. So that would be a concern with the existing people, that, if we bring these facilities in, or buildings in that are smaller, houses and stuff, that now my property value is not worth what it was.
I'll say to that, I'm not an assessor.
Yeah.
That's not my training. The changes in the R3 district, for example, the current minimum is 960 square feet, and it's proposed to be lowered to 800 square feet as a possibility. I believe the house price is based on the price per square foot, and if you have a larger square foot, then your price is gonna be higher. But I don't know, and maybe I would argue that, comps are based on price per square foot, not necessarily the relative or the total price. So I don't know that it would affect the value, just because my neighbor's, $10,000 less, but if I have more square foot, my value would make sense that it's more than the price per square foot. I can't speak to that, this is just my speculation. And I think, the value of a property also is, from a visual perspective, you probably would find it hard to differentiate, just if you're standing on the sidewalk. Is this 960 or is this 800? You're looking also at, of course, the quality of the neighborhood and the quality of materials and things of that nature. So I can't speak to specifics, but I'll just offer those.
Yep. And then thirdly, if, there's the possibility of more apartments and stuff, would be I guess 2 parts. One is the amount of traffic in the city, right? We increase the number of homes, we increase how many people can have duplexes. Right now, instead of having 2 cars, you have a duplex, now you've got 4 cars for that one resident. We have issues with parking now, and traffic, I hear people say, we've got, traffic's really increased in town. we start adding those homes to the city, now does that increase traffic more? And then, you know, the other part of that is, you know, I know a lot of people like Linden because it's a small town, and it's got that small town feel. You know, I'd like to know what people think as far as, okay, hey, we start putting potentially more apartment complexes, and more of these houses in there, how does that affect the feel of Linden? I mean, I've lived here 25 years, and I like the small town, right? And I know that we have a large, you know, because of Shiawassee Shore is a large a group of elderly people here in the city. How do they feel about, you know, changing it, making smaller homes, more traffic, you know? And I guess that would be a question everybody asks, how does that affect our appeal, you know, of the town? So, and that wasn't really a question, it was more of a statement, but, and you know, we did have a conversation on the phone, I really appreciate that, it was very helpful, yeah. I'll let somebody else speak for a little bit.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hill.
So in comparison of the proposed changes on the zoning map that's current, it looks like you more or less fit those different, like the three-family house dwellings into areas that already have similar.
Yes, if you look at that chart, maybe Krishna, if you wanna pull that chart back up. Many of the changes that we're proposing are in the R4 district, which is already our multiple family residential district, where, yeah, absolutely, you've already got the allowance for apartments in there, and we're just defining that, hey, a triplex also is allowed in there.
I thought that's what you had said.
Yeah, so the only change to the R3, which is a single-family residential district, is the potential for accessory dwelling units in a very limited and restricted manner, and even townhouses. So attached units, up to 4 attached units, only if you have a greater minimum frontage and a greater minimum lot size.
So that's what I thought you had said. I went to the planning meeting, I heard you say it there, and that where these changes are, or updates, updates are occurring to the zoning, are pretty much in the areas where you already allow the multi-purpose. There's one question I have though. So I'm looking at the color coding on the zoning map. I figured, you know, it's always good to read about zoning changes when you have the map in front of you. You can clearly see that it really isn't much of a change. But the single-family residential R1 is in white, and so is the cemetery. What's going on there?
The cemetery?
Cemetery's white too, it's like, okay.
Yeah, just in zoning, that's an interesting question. Zoning doesn't often create, for example, a government or public or semi-public specific zoning district. Most in the way that it is in Linden, all of our residential districts allow public parks, governmental buildings, cemeteries, schools, in some cases churches and things of that nature. So that's why you might see, why is the golf course zoned R1 single family residential? Because that district does actually allow residential use.
Right.
And I think to your point as well, it's good to have the zoning map as a comparison to see, okay, we're talking about some changes to the R3 district, and you look at what land is actually zoned R3 district.
Right.
It is really just the neighborhoods immediately surrounding the downtown area. And then in terms of the R4 district, where we are making some changes here, there's a handful of properties that are kind of scattered. Most of them already have multiple family residential development on them presently. So I appreciate the point that this isn't opening the door necessarily for dozens and dozens of properties to then be turned into apartment complexes or something like that.
And I think you explained it at the planning commission meeting, that this was an upgrading and getting those terms that, you know, have changed over the years, updating all that. You did you did update the definition section. I read through the whole thing, and I saw that you updated definitions and just carried it throughout the document.
Yes.
Correct? Okay, that's it, that's all I have.
Simons.
I understand. Thanks for asking the questions, Pam. Thank you for bringing it back to us one more time for another review. And I don't have any other questions.
Okay, Councilwoman Miller.
Can I wait until council member, gets this stuff?
Councilman Linden.
Well, as Adam said, and other people have noticed, this went to the planning commission, it's been there for about a year. There's been public hearings held, many back and forth, and there really, again, is that there aren't very many changes really to the principal R1, 2, and 3 districts. It allows for some more multi-family, to address Councilor Link's concerns of, housing prices. House is assessed for price by square foot, when an assessor does an assessment, it's by square foot. So in my neighborhood, I have a 2,000 square foot house across the street from my 1,500 square foot house, and so on throughout the neighborhood. That's the way it was built. They go by the square footage when they come in and do an assessment. Our biggest concern for traffic, if we built out every square inch of Linden, we might be able to get 400 more units in Linden. I think that number has been battered around. There's 1,000 housing starts in Benton Township on our borders right now that we have no control over. That's what's coming through Linden. That's the traffic that we can't have, that we have no control over, and that's what we need to worry about. If we, we'll never build out the full capacity of Linden, because there's just people that have our legacy property owners that aren't gonna sell. Linden doubled in size in the last 20 years. You look at the assessment, we were all, so most of us in this room were probably here in the last 20 years, and it doubled, we didn't notice. But now the township's building out, we're seeing the effects. So this right here just lets us control what we're gonna build out. It's not gonna be apartments, because apartment buildings can't be built right now without government subsidies. You just can't. I sit on the allocation committee at the county, and people are always looking for handouts for money to build them when they can't build them and make money. Ann Arbor just approved a 320 unit apartment complex on city-owned property that they're also contributing $40 million to the build over 10 years. So there's just no money in apartments right now. It'd be very tight to come into Linden and build apartments. So it's just an update to our ordinances to help us go forward. Again, the definitions weren't there. It didn't mean they weren't gonna be able to come in here and ask us for it, because they would, but now we actually have it in black and white that says you can and can't do this with townhouses. And the main thing we did take out was the large adult foster care in R1 and 2 residential. You could have had up to 20 people in there. We have to stay within the state guidelines for everything else, but that one was one we could take out. So all in all, I think it's pretty comprehensive.
Adam, the other question I have. So when you're putting down bed and breakfast, is that Airbnb?
So the city has a separate short-term rental licensing ordinance that was adopted, I wanna say 2 or 3 years ago. So, no, a bed and breakfast, is not a short-term rental. Any house in the city could be, in theory, turned into a short-term rental, but it would have to comply with the city's short-term rental licensing ordinance that has a myriad of rules and requirements. In the zoning, the term bed and breakfast refers to when somebody has a home and they rent out for basically like a motel, and they also can provide the breakfast, a certain number of rooms. It's not short, it's more like a hotel, and it's technically not a short-term rental per the zoning ordinance. It's a good question.
Do you have anywhere in this is about the Airbnbs?
This language being proposed has no impact to the short-term rental ordinance that was passed 2 or 3 years ago. And in fact, short-term rentals are not addressed in the zoning at all. It's all addressed in that short-term rental licensing ordinance, which is in the general code of ordinances, and that's not in the zoning ordinance.
Okay, that answers a lot of questions. that answers a lot of questions, thank you. Any other questions?
So I have full questions slash statements, we'll start with the statements. Jerry got into my mind and pulled out everything I was thinking, so thanks for that.
Spoke for a half hour.
So I too, do get concerned, because I know that Linden does very much want that small town feel. A good part of the residents do in fact want that. And I don't know how this would change that. When I'm looking at some of the proposed areas, and most definitely when you're dealing with Bridge Street. So I guess the question that I have is, has anyone, and I know they're expensive, but traffic studies, have we looked at this at all? And to do a traffic study, as we have got, they're closing Thompson Road to put 2 roundabouts. All of that traffic is gonna be coming into Linden, plus everything that they're building, plus then anything that we're building. That's a lot more additional traffic, and I have sat and watched light cycles go and people not even be able to turn at Bridge and Broad. Because the traffic, we're already there. So I guess that is a concern, because if you're talking 400 units, then that could be up to 800 more cars that just reside in Linden, not Benton Township.
Would you like me to answer that question? No, we have not done a traffic study as part of the master plan. We have not done a traffic study as part of this zoning ordinance language exercise. And it's not typical that we would necessarily. You know, the master plan does look at, to speak to traffic issues and concerns and circulation in general. The city could always, you know, petition for a traffic, or commission a traffic study, working with your, you know, transportation partners and whatnot. Typically, that's not common though. You would require the traffic study typically when a development is proposed. And if there's a concern, you know, recently the planning commission, you know, they did preliminary approval of a development, and they indicated to the applicant, when you come back for final, we need to see a traffic impact study. And so the applicant pays for the cost for that traffic study, and that evaluates, do we need a new traffic signal? How many entrances are proposed? Things of that nature. So typically it comes when a development is proposed, and you know, the 400 units, you know, maybe that's a possibility at full build out, but we take it one development at a time. And so what this language does is not approving 400 new developments, it's approving the opportunity for property owners to present us with market supported development projects that may include housing, and us the opportunity to approve them if they're the right fit for the community.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I have one more question, if I could, please. I know you spoke of the lot sizes changing on some of these. You know, and most of that's in the R3 district, I believe?
There are no proposed changes to the minimum lot sizes
Oh, I thought there was
in the
something.
R1, R2, or R3
Okay.
district. The only change is for the new ones that we're potentially allowing, accessory dwelling units and townhouses in the R3 as a special land use. Those come with a minimum lot size that's greater than the minimum for a single family lot.
Right, okay, yes, yeah. So that would, in order to qualify for that, they're gonna have this, enough square footage in
That's
the
right.
property. Have you looked to see a percentage wise, like, okay, you know, because most of that R3 district is your smaller properties, you know, in downtown. Was there ever a look, you know what, there's only 33% of the properties that would even be eligible because the space, you know, was that ever, you know, that might limit by a good bit how many people can put one of those dwelling units on there?
I don't know that we went through and actually looked for the R3 zone properties, which ones are greater than, say, 12,000 square feet, which would be the minimum proposed in the language to have a 2-unit.
Right.
Which is about, I think that's 66%, about 66% greater than what it would be for a single family. So we did not do that evaluation.
Okay.
But you can look at the zoning map and you could see that gold color for R3. It's pretty quick to see which properties are actually a little bit bigger,
Yeah.
double the size as the typical one. There are some, certainly.
Yeah, okay.
But it's not a significant number, I would.
Madam Mayor?
Thank you.
Oh.
Go ahead. I just wanted to point out that in R3, and I know everybody's kind of looking at this map, or if they're not looking at the map, they should. It's, there's many areas in R3 you can't build on because it's wetlands. And so I think that, maybe, like, especially off Ripley, or, Ripley Road towards, Ralston, there's a lot of wetlands up there, and you can't build on that anyway. So I don't know if we're, like, going overboard with this, but there's a lot of areas that are, and then again, on Ralston Road, that, like Brad pointed out, these are legacy homeowners, and they're not gonna sell that property, so.
Yeah, I will say again, the R3 district is concentrated, or the neighborhoods immediately surrounding downtown, so there's no Ralston Road properties that are zoned R3.
R2, sorry.
R2, so yeah, we're not
Well, that's why I
proposing,
said, I'm sorry, I said the wrong number, but I said
Yeah.
the right street, Ralston and Ripley.
yeah, so we're not proposing changes to the R1
Right.
or R2, except what Councilmember Dick mentioned about the adult foster care,
Right.
large group homes.
Good point.
Do any residents have any questions about this housing focus zoning ordinance?
Madam Mayor, can I ask a question? It would be to Adam, and I'm not really sure how this will, how we do this, but do we keep in the, idea of our fire, our police, and what we need if we did all this? How do we incorporate their safety in the fire department, as we have it right now? Do we can take that concern into when you're proposing?
Yeah, as part of the development review process, we do share with any site plan that's proposed with the fire, police, DPW, engineering, planning, and seek and solicit comments from them. That's correct.
Thank you.
Any further council questions? I'm gonna go back again, since I missed you last time, sorry. Any further resident questions? And we're not voting on this, correct? We're at the manager's update.
Yeah, just a couple of things. Tessa and I are meeting with MTA tomorrow to finalize shuttle services that would, it's a pilot program that we would partner with them on to get them to trolley services to Fenton. And that's free and eligible to anyone within city limits. We would have 4 stops within the city limits. Again, we're working to finalize that. We'll get the information out as soon as we have it. We're just a little bit, we're waiting on the state for the mill project, as far as the permits specifically right now. And
Yes, it is moving forward.
it's moving forward, but we're just waiting on a couple of those things. I think in my update last week, I told you that they did find, which we anticipated some surprises along the way. They found a septic field or a septic tank, that needs to be abandoned and taken care of, stuff like that. Our Safe Routes to School project started today, moving along. We're working with Southern Lakes Parks and Rec to finalize our, agreement, and things. And so, Brooke, is working to finalize the audit and hopefully a presentation to council in November. And we're also working on, the start of our new year and budget, getting things ready for our budget within the next year, so.
Thank you. Any city attorney updates?
I missed your last meeting. Patrick, who sat in for me, gave me the upshot of it. I understand that there was some discussion about recording of meetings, et cetera. I'm up to speed on that, and we'll be first reporting to Ellen and talking about when and how best to bring that all back to you so we can have that conversation and move forward. Other than that, that's all.
Thank you, all the departments, for your department reports. And we're going to move to council comments and reports. We're gonna start tonight with Councilman Mayor Pro Tem Dick.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As everybody, actually, in my Halloween garden, we did have a great Halloween event. Family Scarecrows and Monsters happening in Linden. We had probably 2,000 people in the wood park on Friday, October 17th. It was amazing to see all the kids and us come out for that event. It was the biggest crowd we've ever had in one night. So, it was very fun, a lot of fun. In regards to tonight's business, the lighting amendment, just so everybody knows, that it doesn't affect anybody currently. It's all new construction, as long as their site plan is valid. It just affects new construction. And food zoning for these changes to, we don't have anybody knocking on our door saying we wanna build. So, this is all just forward thinking. That's all.
Thank you. Councilwoman Tenney.
Yes, just a couple things. Regarding the parking downtown, I think it might be a good idea to put a sign there that just says patrons only or customers only, this side of the street, parking, and an arrow for parking behind the building next door. Just a suggestion. And then I also wanted to confirm Ellen's report that Southern Lakes Parks and Rec is working on their agreement with LOSI, and it's going very well. We are closer to having a director. We've made an offer and hoping to have a new director of Southern Lakes Parks and Rec on board by the first of the year. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilwoman Miller.
Well, I'd like to first thank Monica and the veterans, for bringing out the signs. It's exciting to see. If you haven't seen them, everyone has little signs that they want, and they put them in the front yards, and it's thanking our veterans, which is close to my heart. The dinner, I hope all of our veterans will come out and have a great dinner at the Masonic. And then we're down to the parking. I did bring this to Ellen. I'm sure she's heard about it many, many times. I hope that, we can get this fixed, especially for the small businesses that, they don't have people. I know in Blair and a couple other places, they have the elderly come in a lot. And we really, the coffee shops, those are just one, maybe an hour or hour and a half to come in and get some patrons. So if we can really fix that. And then the trolley. Ellen, thank you. If this could make, I'm not 100%,
It won't be a trolley that's in town just yet, so they're running just a shuttle bus.
A shuttle.
As a pilot to
It's a
see what
start.
our ridership is, and then eventually we could potentially have our own own trolley.
Yep.
That would.
Yeah, that's amazing, because I really think that it will help. I think that's it. Thank you for all your help on that too. Thank you.
Councilwoman Howard.
I have a few things that I wanted to bring forward. First though, I wanted to thank the LOSI staff and the DPW for helping on the Radon Awareness and Environmental Health Fair. It was very successful. We had a surge of people right at 1 o'clock. Of course, we weren't completely set up, so they waited patiently, but they were awesome. They came in, had coffee and cookies, but it was a very successful day. And a lot of people learned about radon. Yeah, I would ask them in the audience if they're out there. Anyway, I wanted to say that I was making a left turn onto let me get my direction, I'm a little tired, it was a long day. Eastbound Broad Street at the corner, so going going south on, Bridge Street, right at that corner, and I was stopped way back from the line, cause something told me just stop. I stopped way back from the line, and sure enough, if not a big semi, was it bigger than most semis? I don't know, but it seemed to be a real long one, was struggling to get around the corner, went over the curb, and I almost got hit, and I was actually on the not hogging, but I was closer to the right side of the lane, and way back from that line. That scares the heck out of me, that got these huge semis, they can't even maneuver around that corner. And so, I'm not saying anything, Scott, I'm just letting you know, it happened to me, and it scared out of me, anyway. I'm sorry, I'm just bringing it up. And then, I agree with the parking, because I think our patrons, I don't know, will the mill planning, or mill rebuilding and fixing go on schedule? Who knows, but I think our businesses need a little bit of help to make sure people can get to them. It really concerns me, Serendipity and Flair and everybody else. I just think they need a little courtesy and respect, and if people, able-bodied people are parking right there, employees, I think just a patron sign would be okay. I know you can't enforce, I know it's hard and you're low-handed. We need more officers, dang it. Anyway, and the other thing is, I briefly attended the firemen, the fundraiser for the firemen at the United Methodist Church. And I donated, but it brings up a point, why are they having to raise funds to buy basic needs, like helmets and stuff? A lot of those guys I know, I heard mention that their helmets were 2001 or before, and I think they have to be every 10 years replaced. Correct me if I'm wrong, am I wrong? Did I hear that right at the fundraiser?
I don't think I have anything that's 2001.
Okay, well anyway, I'm just saying, I'm sorry, maybe I'm out there, but 2011 I think it was.
It's a gesture on their part, they just wanna help out.
Right, well, I was just wondering why are we just purchasing those needs?
We do what we need.
Okay, all right. That's just, I'm sorry, but when we attend the fundraiser, I just was wondering, that's all. And then, I wanted to make sure, with all the upgrades to our water system, have we checked all the fire hydrants to make sure they're adequately working, like, up and down to the high school and back, or wherever we service?
So every spring and fall, we flush hydrants throughout the community. So we get our hands on every single hydrant to see if they're working or not. Do we have some in the community that aren't currently working? Yes, that's not unusual.
I just was wondering.
We're aware of a couple, some of them are older, and we're having a little bit of difficulty getting some parts out for some of them, so
That's
we may
all.
have to change the entire hydrant.
Right, I'm John, I just was curious, because I got thinking about it, I know we've done a lot of upgrading, but did we pay attention to fire hydrants, that's all? No big.
Okay, does anybody mention anything about parking?
Yeah.
Actually, I would like to bring a little bit more and ask, because obviously it sounds like quite a few of us are interested in looking at possible solutions. If we could add that to like the work session, I know that's in January, which really isn't gonna solve the immediate problem. But, if we could just maybe throw that in as a work session topic to kind of maybe come up with some ideas to make it better than what it is. Maybe there's not, but at least it's gonna be discussed. So, and that's all I have.
Right, well, I might as well start with parking too, since everybody else went there, it was on the list. I just wanted to see, if, once you've had the conversations on, if it is possible to update council on those conversations with Wax, Serendipity, wherever it is, whatever you have said, just so that we're aware, and we're not stating something that wasn't correct. Because as we're out and about, I know we're all getting asked, what can we do about the parking? So I wanna make sure that whatever we're saying matches up with what you're saying.
Sure,
On that-
I'll
on
put
that
it in,
issue.
yeah, I can put it in my update as I do most things, the communication. Tessa's approach has been education through Grow Linden and our business list, so we'll continue to do that, but, and when we're talking about parking, we're talking about a temporary solution during the construction.
Correct.
Clarifying.
I would say no, that it would be more, because even though once the construction is done, yes, that opens up more parking spots for the employees to park there. But what that does then is, once the library and the museum and everything gets going there, that reduces the number of parking spots for people going to the library. So I don't know if it's a short, I mean, yeah, it can address the short term, but I think once the library opens back up and whatever else ends up in that building, now we're taking that public spot and filling it with all those employees. So my discussion was just kind of like to talk about parking in general, not just the temporary while the construction's going on, but also maybe look at ideas of how we can improve it moving forward also. Because I had heard complaints about the parking before the construction had started, that all the spots in the library were getting taken up with Dr. Wax's, and I don't wanna call out Dr. Wax's employees, but all the employees in those buildings. Were not using the parking lots directly behind the building, they were saving those for their customers, and then filling up the library, so just kind of a general discussion is what I was looking for. I don't know what everybody else was talking about.
I'm gonna finish now. So I also wanted to discuss, a resident, did come and report to me a few weeks ago, a very similar experience on the exact same corner as what you have had. So I don't know if there's anything that can be done there, but if that could be explored, because you can see them driving up on the curb over by Dr. Wax's building, and they have lifted up some of the metal off the lamp post over there by hitting it, so it's just, it is a little bit a concern, just to see what can be done. Also, the stoplight, since we're talking about Bridge and Broad, I wanted to see if there is a way to get a turn signal. I am seeing an awful lot of people, as I have been there, and it doesn't really matter the time of day, running it. Or having to sit through multiple cycles, or cutting through now over by, behind, Thimbleberry, and going around, because they can't wait for 4 light cycles to be able to turn. So I don't know if that's something we can explore, is turn signals there. And also, a resident brought to me, is there a way that we can get the striping on the road at Bridge and Broad repainted, because it's kind of faded, and so people are creating at this point their own lanes over there. So that was also equally brought to me. And I want to say thank you to the American Legion for all that you're doing supporting the vets with the signs and the dinners, if you could please pass that on. From the wife of a retiree, it is very appreciated. And so thank you guys for all that you do, and especially in November, but all the time. Thank you guys. And that concludes my council comments. And we have no closed session. And so is there a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Support.
Motion,